like, oh, this is all great, well and good, but if you haven't made this critical choice for yourself, then it's not going to help you that much. And the actual choice, or the decision, I call it, is to take personal responsibility for your relationships in your life. And I know that I didn't do that for most of my life, so I know the difference between having taken personal responsibility and not having taken personal responsibility.
So Andy, chapter 10, if I understand correctly, was kind of a latecomer to the book. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened there and how this chapter got included?
Yeah, as I was writing the book, you know how there's like little nags that exist in your consciousness that you don't know what it is yet, but you know there's something that doesn't feel right. And it kind of comes to some of the topics we've discussed on prior videos. And it's the following, is that none of the things I write make any sense or are not relevant to anyone unless they've made a decision to take personal responsibility in their lives. It was almost like, oh, this is all great, well and good, but if you haven't made this critical choice for yourself, then it's not going to help you that much. And the actual choice, or the decision, I call it, is to take personal responsibility for your relationships in your life. And I know that I didn't do that for most of my life, so I know the difference between having taken personal responsibility and not having taken personal responsibility.
Okay, and on that, I know you have a great example. Can you share?
Yeah, so when I began to self-reflect, I saw that, like, that typical statement, like, the only thing consistent in all of your failed relationships is you. So I really had to, like, look at that dead in the face. And what I saw was that I was judging people, and I wasn't letting them know that I had judgment towards them because I made assumptions that I already knew how they were going to react. So I don't need to take any responsibility because I projected onto them and then basically just looked for things that affirmed what I wanted to believe about them. And that all came to a head. It was like one of those magical moments, one of the scariest moments of my life in business, where there was an individual who I worked closely with that I hated. His name, because I love him now, is Gerhard Graf. Gerhard, if you're out there, I love you. And Gerhard was somebody that I hated. Like, I came into the office, I don't think he's genuine. I can't trust him. I think he's going to say one thing to me and something to somebody else. So I had all these stories about Gerhard in my head. And then I realized I had never taken any responsibility for those feelings. I never brought them up. I never gave him an opportunity to interact with me around them. So in a way, I wasn't being authentic, and I wasn't being genuine. I wasn't giving him a chance to meet me, because why should I? I already knew what a horrible individual he was. So I remember, like, asking him to come into my office, and I was sweating profusely, and I just said, I remember like the words, I remember them exact. I just said, Gerhard, I just want to let you know that I don't trust you. And his whole body softened. Like, there was no reaction, there was no defensiveness. He just said, why? Like, with genuine curiosity. I get emotional talking about it now, because it's those moments when you move into something that feels so difficult, and that in doing it, you get a reward you would have never imagined. And so I shared with him everything. I said, well, when you do this and that, it affects me. And I was just totally open with him. And through that, like, it was like funny, we'd have lunch together. We had this, it was like a friendship that was like stronger than like most of the other friendships I had within the office. And many years later, I came to do a presentation there. And from all the people I invited, Gerhard was the one who showed up. And he was there, and he shared his gratitude to me, and vice versa. So it was that moment where I could have stepped away from personal responsibility and made it about him. Or I could have said, there's something that I'm not allowing him to see, and it's risky, and it could go bad, but I haven't given him a chance. And that was, for me, where I really understood what personal responsibility was.
So it sounds like with personal responsibility, you're talking about something about being vulnerable, something about telling somebody the truth about things, something about finding a way for you to take responsibility for a feeling you have that's based upon biases, expectations. A lot of different things can come into play there.
Yeah.
What do you do about people who are really jerks and who really want to be, like, they want to be mean to you, they want to hurt you?
Yeah.
how do you prevent yourself from becoming a little bit Pollyannish with this direction and leading yourself into a place where they're just going to hurt you more because you just opened yourself up and given them an opportunity to shoot you with the arrow through the heart?
Yeah, that would be just self-sabotaging. So again, I'll repeat it over and over again. It's always a choice, and it's always because I see that there's an opportunity that I want to take. So there's a lot of people that I'm not particularly open with. And I don't judge me or that person. I've made certain decisions of why I want to take that risk with that individual. So I would say that's everyone's judgment to make for themselves. And I would hate it if one thought I should be in connection with everyone in my life. Far from it. We'll get into that in later chapters. The way I see it is I just want to know, hey, what can I do and feel good about myself? Like, what can I do and say, hey, I tried, and let's agree, it could go bad, but I tried. And I'm always one to say, I'm going to try. And again, let me qualify it. When I want to give it a chance. Sometimes I'm like, why would I mean, time and energy, there's not enough hours in the day to give everything away to everybody. But when it's important to me, I do.
Okay. Well, so, talk to me a bit from that point. Talk to me a bit about the exercise.
Yeah.
And what you hope people accomplish from that.
Yeah. So the one thing what I saw with like personal responsibility, we talked about one aspect of it, which would be, hey, I go vulnerably with an individual who might not feel safe. It's a big risk. The other part is something that is more of an internal dialogue. And it's the following, is that when I look at an individual and judge them, basically I'm, of course, looking for that confirmation bias like we spoke about earlier. I need them to validate that view so I can continue to look at them in that negative light. So this lens of love exercise forces, if I say he's a jerk, which is what one might say, to say he does things that make me feel uncomfortable, or he's disrespectful, it would shift to he apparently doesn't have any problem showing up late to meetings. And so what happens through looking at through the lens of love, I can interact with them around it. And the thing I'm always trying to point out throughout the entire book is that how we engage a person defines what's possible in the connection. So if I engage them as a jerk, I guarantee you they're going to get defensive, and then I've separated myself from them emotionally. But if I say, wow, they have good intentions, they just don't see that by showing up late for the meeting, it disrupts us, then I can bring it forward to that person in a loving way that allows us to get connection. Now, will they show up to the next meeting? Possibly not, but I don't need to lose connection through that process. I don't feel like we need to lose connection through that process. And in the book, of course, I hear your voice as well of the reader in my head, which says, what happens if they do it a second time? What happens when they do it a third time? And the humorous thing is I continue meeting them in love, but I continue meeting them in love with more and more consequences. So it would be like, listen, I'm sorry, this is the second time you've shown up and it's had consequences, and I've shown you that we can't start the meeting without you. So how do you want to deal with this going forward? To the point that we may have to separate. But within the separation, what tends to happen is there's not blame. It's more like, oh, we see this just can't work. And that's what I'm always trying to create, is the opportunity for us to connect even in the most difficult of situations. And when you take the personal responsibility, what you're actually saying is, I'm going to do my best to make sure we stay in connection through the whole process. So that's what personal responsibility is for me.
So it kind of sounds like you're looking for a way so that you can do all you can do to make that relationship work. And you allow the other person to accept it or not, but you don't inadvertently cut those opportunities short because of whatever's going on inside you.
Yes. You stay in connection, even if they're not even respecting in the word respect, but even if they're not doing or moving in the direction that you're inviting them to move. But I'm not going to stay out of connection. I'm here. You can decide where you want to go. I'm doing my best. How can we make this work? I see this happening over and over again. How can we make this work? You see, you're putting me in a difficult situation. It's really staying there throughout the whole process. And I see it's really easy for people to switch quickly. Frustration and anger, like, I've had enough now. Now it's, and I can't say that's wrong. I've noticed a lot of times, like, giving them the tough love is not a bad thing. But if you can't do both equally, then you're basically, you're the hammer looking for nails. And I'd rather be versatile. I'd rather say, this isn't going to work, and then, but also be there in staying in connection if possible. Yeah.
Okay, great, thanks.